Before we have pie, I said, standing up at what should have been a beautiful family dinner, I have something to show you all. I handed my son Trevor a folder. I watched the color drain from his face as he opened it. Mom, he stammered, his hands shaking, I can explain. Can you explain the 3 life insurance policies you took out on me? Can you explain the $90,000 home equity loan you forged my signature on? Can you explain why my electrical system has been deliberately sabotaged so I'd die in a fire? The silence in my dining room was absolute. My daughter Jenna's face went pale. Her husband Craig looked at her with pure horror. Jenna, what is this? What did you do? And that's when my own daughter said the words that confirmed everything. You're the one who tampered with the wiring, Trevor. You said it would look like an accident. Hello, my beautiful family. Welcome back to Voice of Auntie Katie.to every single one of you watching right now. Whether you're a long-time subscriber or this is your first time finding my channel, I want you to know how deeply grateful I am that you're here. Your presence, your comments, your stories that you share with me, they matter more than you could ever know. Before we begin today's story, I want to take just a moment to lift you up in prayer, because I believe that words spoken with love and intention carry power. Dear Heavenly Father, I come before you today on behalf of every person watching this video. Lord, wherever they are right now, whether they're driving to work, cooking dinner, lying in bed, or taking a quiet moment for themselves, I ask that you wrap your arms around them. Touch their hearts, ease their burdens, and remind them that they are seen, they are valued, and they are never alone. Give them strength for whatever challenges they're facing. Open doors that need to be opened, and close doors that no longer serve them. Let them feel your presence in every breath they take. In your precious name, Amen. Now, my dear ones, settle in. What I'm about to share with you today is a story that will shake you to your core. It's about a woman named Patricia Hoffman, and how the people she loved most in this world, her own children, plotted to take everything from her, including her life. But this isn't just a story about betrayal. It's a story about strength, about courage, and about what happens when a woman who's been pushed to the edge finally decides to push back. If this story resonates with you, if it makes you feel something deep in your soul, do me a favor, hit that like button right now. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. And if you're not already subscribed, click that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell, because stories like this one, stories that teach us, that empower us, that remind us of our worth, these are the stories I bring to you every single week. Now, let's begin. My name is Patricia Hoffman. I'm 68 years old, and for most of my life, I believed I understood what family meant. I believed that when you love someone, truly love them, you give them everything you have. Your time. Your energy. Your money. Your heart. I was wrong about so many things. I raised 2 children on my own after my husband died when they were young. Trevor was only 3. Jenna was just a baby, barely a year old. My husband had a heart attack on a Tuesday morning while mowing the lawn. By Tuesday afternoon, I was a widow with 2 babies and a mortgage I could barely afford. I worked as a nurse at Portland General Hospital. But one nursing salary wasn't enough, so I picked up double shifts. Sometimes triple shifts. I'd work 16 hours, come home just long enough to kiss my babies goodnight, and then head back for another 8 hours. I remember Trevor asking me once, when he was about 7 years old, "Mama, why are you always so tired?" I smiled at him, even though my feet were screaming and my back felt like it might snap in half, and I said, "Because I'm working hard to give you and your sister a good life, baby. That's what mamas do." And I believed that. With everything in me, I believed that sacrifice was love. That exhaustion was devotion. That giving until you had nothing left was what good mothers did. I drove a car held together with duct tape and prayers while Trevor and Jenna wore brand new clothes to school. I ate ramen noodles for dinner, breakfast and lunch too, sometimes, so they could have balanced meals with vegetables and protein. I canceled dental appointments for myself so I could pay for their braces. When Trevor wanted to go to basketball camp, I sold my wedding ring to pay for it. When Jenna needed money for her senior trip to Washington, D.C., I picked up extra shifts for 3 months straight and didn't buy myself a single new piece of clothing. I put them both through college. Trevor went to Portland State for finance. Jenna studied business and real estate at the University of Oregon. Between the two of them, I spent over $100,000 on their education. Money I didn't have. Money I borrowed. Money I'm still paying back at 68 years old, but I did it gladly. Because they were my children. Because I loved them. Because I thought that's what love looked like. After college, Trevor got a job at an investment firm. He was smart with numbers, always had been. He married a woman named Bethany, polished, professional, the kind of woman who always looked like she'd just stepped out of a magazine. They moved into a nice apartment in the Pearl District, bought expensive furniture, drove nice cars. Jenna became a real estate agent. She married Craig, a sweet man who worked in tech. They had a beautiful loft downtown, all exposed brick and modern fixtures. Both my children were living these successful, glossy lives. And I was proud. So proud. But here's what I didn't see, what I refused to see for the longest time: their success was built on a foundation of my money. It started small. Trevor would call and say, "Mom, we're a little short on rent this month. Could you help us out? Just $500. I'll pay you back next month." Next month never came. Then it was Jenna. "Mom, I need $1,500 for a security deposit on my new office space. It's a great investment. I'll pay you back as soon as I close my first sale." She never paid me back either. The requests got bigger. More frequent. More desperate. "Mom, we need $3,000 for repairs on one of our rental properties." "Mom, can you loan us $5,000? We're investing in a new business opportunity." "Mom, emergency. We need $2,000 right now or we'll lose the deal." I gave it all. Every time. Because they were my children. Because I'd always been there for them. Because saying no felt like failing them. Over the course of 3 years, I gave Trevor and Bethany over $40,000. I gave Jenna another $30,000. $70,000 total. Money from my retirement savings. Money my husband had left me in his life insurance. Money I needed to live on, but what hurt more than the money was everything else they took. They took my time. I'd wait by the phone for hours hoping they'd call, just to talk, just to ask how I was doing. But they only called when they needed something. They took my presents. Every holiday, every birthday, I was there. But when it was my birthday, when it was Mother's Day, I was lucky if I got a text message. They took my dignity. I'd hear them on the phone sometimes, talking to their friends. "Hold on, my mom's calling. Probably wants something." As if I was the burden. As if I was the one always asking for help. And the grandchildren. "Oh, the grandchildren I was promised soon, Mom," Trevor would say. "Bethany and I are planning to start a family soon. You'll be the best grandma. We're thinking about kids in the next year or two," Jenna would tell me. "You'll get to spoil them rotten. 5 years of soon. 5 years of next year. 5 years of broken promises." I was 68 years old and I'd never held a grandbaby. Never read bedtime stories or baked cookies with little hands covered in flour. Never experienced the joy I'd worked so hard to deserve. But I kept waiting. I kept giving. I kept hoping that if I just loved them enough, if I just gave them enough, they'd finally see me as more than a wallet with feelings. Then came the electrical problems. It started about 3 months ago. I was making breakfast one morning when the kitchen lights flickered. Once. Twice. Then they went out completely. I flipped the breaker and they came back on, but something fell off. Over the next few weeks, it got worse. Outlets would stop working. The lights would dim at random times. I'd hear this strange buzzing sound in the walls, like angry bees trapped inside my house. I called Trevor. "Honey, I'm having some electrical issues. Do you know anyone who could take a look?" "Mom, old houses do that," he said, his voice already impatient, already wanting to get off the phone. "It's probably nothing. Don't waste money on an electrician. I'll come by this weekend and check it out." The weekend came and went. Trevor didn't show up. I called Jenna. Sweetie, your brother said he'd look at my electrical problems, but he hasn't come by. Do you think, Mom, you're overreacting? She cut me off. It's probably just a loose wire. You don't need to spend hundreds of dollars on something Trevor can fix for free. Just wait for him. So I waited. Because that's what I did. I waited for my children. But the problems got worse. The microwave would spark when I used it. The refrigerator would shut off randomly. One night, I woke up to smoke coming from an outlet in my bedroom. That's when I got scared. Really scared. I was lying in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, thinking about that smoke. Thinking about how I could have died in my sleep. Thinking about how my children had told me not to call anyone, not to get help, just to wait for them, and something inside me shifted. The next morning was a Tuesday. I remember that because Tuesdays were always my grocery shopping days. But instead of going to the store, I picked up my phone and I called Henderson Electric. I need someone to come look at my electrical system, I told the woman who answered. Today, if possible. It's urgent, we can have someone there at 2 o'clock, she said. Will that work? Yes, I said. And for the first time in years, I felt like I'd made a decision for myself. A decision my children wouldn't approve of. A decision that was mine alone. At exactly 2 o'clock, there was a knock on my door. The man standing on my porch was weathered, probably in his mid-50s, with kind eyes and work-roughened hands that reminded me of my late husband. His shirt had Henderson Electric embroidered on the pocket, and his name tag read Gary. Mrs. Hoffman, he said, extending his hand. I'm Gary Henderson. I understand you're having some electrical problems? Yes, I said, suddenly feeling silly. What if Trevor was right? What if I was overreacting and wasting money? The lights have been flickering, and outlets keep stopping, and last night there was smoke. Smoke? His expression turned serious. Ma'am, I need to check your system right away. Smoke is never normal. He came inside and went straight to the breaker box in my hallway. I watched him open it, heard him make small noises, little clicks of his tongue, soft whistles through his teeth. After a few minutes, he turned to me, his face grave. Mrs. Hoffman, your electrical system is original to this house. We're talking 1960s wiring. But that's not the biggest problem. My heart started pounding. What do you mean? I mean some of this wiring has been tampered with. Recently. Within the last few months, I'd say. Someone's been messing with your system. The floor felt like it was tilting under my feet. Tampered with? Who would do that? I don't know, ma'am. But whoever it was knew what they were doing. They made it look like age and wear, but I can see the marks. This wasn't an accident. This was deliberate. I had to sit down. My mind was racing. Who had access to my house? Who would want to sabotage my electrical system? Trevor. He thought came unbidden, unwanted. But once it was there, I couldn't make it go away. Trevor had a key to my house. Trevor had been promising for months to look at the electrical problems. Trevor worked with investments and numbers, and he was smart enough to make something look like an accident, but why? Why would my son want to hurt me? Gary was watching me carefully. Mrs. Hoffman, are you all right? Do you need me to call someone? No, I said quickly. No, I'm fine. Can you fix it? I can. But first, I need to check your attic. Sometimes with older homes, that's where the main issues are. Is that okay? I nodded, still numb, still trying to process what he just told me. He pulled down the attic access ladder in my hallway. I hadn't been up there in years, my knees couldn't handle ladders anymore, and honestly, I'd always been a little afraid of small, dark spaces. Gary climbed up with his flashlight, and I stood below, waiting. Minutes passed. I heard him moving around up there, heard the creak of old floorboards, heard him shifting things, then I heard nothing. Complete silence. Mr. Henderson? I called up. Is everything all right? No answer. My heart started racing. Mr. Henderson? Gary? His face appeared in the opening. And the look on his face, I'll never forget it as long as I live. It wasn't concern about wiring. It was shock. Pure shock. And underneath that, something that looked like pity. Mrs. Hoffman, he said slowly, carefully, like he was talking to someone on the edge of a cliff, I think you need to come up here. I can't climb ladders, I said, my voice shaking. My knees, then I'm going to bring something down to you. He paused. And then I think you should call someone. A lawyer, maybe. Or the police. My hands started shaking so hard I had to clasp them together. What did you find? He disappeared back into the attic. I heard scraping, the sound of something heavy being dragged across the floor. Then he reappeared, carefully climbing down the ladder with a large plastic storage bin in his arms. He set it on the hallway floor in front of me. There are 6 more just like this up there, he said quietly. Mrs. Hoffman, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I stared at the bin. It was one of mine, I recognized it. One of those clear plastic ones I'd bought from Target years ago to store Christmas decorations. But I'd never put this one in the attic. I'd never even seen it before. My hands were trembling as I knelt down. My knees protested, shooting sharp pains up my legs, but I barely felt it. I had to know. I had to see. I opened the lid. Inside were papers. Hundreds and hundreds of papers. Documents. Files. Folders. I pulled out the first one with shaking hands. It was a bank statement. From Chase Bank. With my name on it. But I didn't have an account at Chase Bank. I pulled out another. A credit card statement from Capital One. Balance, $18 for $39. I'd never applied for a Capital One card. Another document. Another credit card. Another bank account I'd never opened. My vision started to blur. The hallway was spinning. Mrs. Hoffman, let me help you, Gary said, taking my elbow, guiding me to sit on the floor with my back against the wall, but I couldn't stop. I kept pulling out papers, kept reading them, each one worse than the last. A home equity line of credit against my house. For $90,000. My house that I'd paid off 15 years ago. My house that was supposed to be mine, free and clear. 3 credit cards with combined balances of $47,000. Purchases I'd never made. Charges I'd never authorized, personal loans. 5 of them. Totaling $32,000, all in my name. All with my signature. Except it wasn't quite my signature. It was close, so close that a bank wouldn't question it. But I knew my own handwriting. I'd signed my name thousands of times in my 68 years. These signatures looked like mine. But they weren't mine, someone had forged my signature. On loan applications. On credit card applications. On documents that had buried me in debt I didn't even know existed. And then I found them. 3 life insurance policies. Tucked into a folder at the very bottom of the bin, each one was for $250,000. Each one listed me, Patricia and Hoffman, as the insured party. Each one had been taken out within the last 18 months. And the beneficiaries? Trevor Hoffman, Jenna Hoffman. My children. 3 policies. $750,000 total. That's what I was worth to them. Dead. I couldn't breathe. My chest felt tight, like someone had wrapped steel bands around my ribcage and was pulling them tighter and tighter. The hallway tilted. The walls closed in. Gary caught me before I hit the floor. Easy, Mrs. Hoffman. Easy now. Let me get you some water. He helped me to the living room couch, settled me there, and went to the kitchen. I heard the tap running, heard the cabinet open, heard him moving around in my house like he'd been there 100 times before. He came back with a glass of water and pressed it into my hands. I drank. mechanically. Not tasting it. Not feeling it. Just drinking because he told me to. How long have you lived here? He asked gently, sitting in the chair across from me. 42 years, I whispered. My husband and I bought it when Trevor was a baby. And it's paid off? 15 years ago. We made the last payment 15 years ago. He nodded grimly. Someone took out a home equity loan against it. $90,000. And based on those statements, it's nearly maxed out, but I never signed anything. The words came out automatically. Then I stopped. Because that wasn't true, was it? I had signed things. Over the past 2 years, Trevor and Bethany had brought me papers occasionally. Just some estate planning documents, Mom. Making sure everything's in order so when the time comes, there won't be any problems. Trevor's voice, so reasonable, so caring. And Bethany, sliding papers across my kitchen table during Sunday dinners we used to have. Just updating your will, Patricia. Making sure the house transfers smoothly. I'd signed them. All of them. Without reading them carefully. Because I trusted them. Because they were my family. Because I never imagined. Oh God, I breathed. Oh my God, Gary Henderson sat quietly while I processed what I'd just realized. My own children. The babies I'd carried in my womb, nursed at my breast, rocked to sleep through countless midnight feedings, they'd been forging my signature. Stealing my identity. Planning my death. Mr. Henderson, I said, my voice surprisingly steady considering my entire world had just collapsed, could you do me a favor? Anything, ma'am. Could you take pictures of everything in that attic? Every bin, every document, every single piece of paper up there. He pulled out his phone. Already did. The moment I saw what was up there, I started documenting. I've got timestamps, location data, everything. I looked at this stranger, this electrician who'd come to fix my wiring, and felt more gratitude than I'd felt toward my own children in years. Why? I asked. Why would you do that for me? His expression softened. My mother died 3 years ago. She was 71. After she passed, we found out my brother had been stealing from her for years. Forging checks, taking out credit cards in her name, the whole thing. By the time we discovered it, she was gone and there was nothing we could do about it. His voice cracked slightly. I swore after that, if I ever saw signs of elder abuse, I wouldn't look the other way. I wouldn't let it happen to someone else's mother. Tears filled my eyes. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Mrs. Hoffman. This is going to get ugly before it gets better. He reached into his wallet and pulled out a business card. This is my attorney, James Warren. He's one of the best in Portland, and he specializes in elder law. Call him tonight. Tell him I sent you. He'll see you first thing tomorrow morning. After Gary left, refusing to charge me a single penny for the service call, I sat alone in my living room as the afternoon light faded to evening. I didn't turn on the lamps. I just sat there in the growing darkness, holding those life insurance policies in my lap. $750,000. That's what my children thought I was worth dead. I thought about the past 2 years. All those times I'd felt unusually tired. The dizzy spells I'd blamed on low blood sugar. The headaches that came out of nowhere. The times food had tasted strange, metallic, wrong. I'd attributed it all to aging. To stress. To my medications needing adjustment. But now I wondered. Had they been poisoning me? Slowly? Testing to see if they could make it look natural, and the electrical problems that started 3 months ago, had Trevor tampered with the wiring himself? Was he hoping I'd die in a fire? Quick, clean, impossible to prove, my phone buzzed on the coffee table. A text from Jenna. Mom, Trevor said you called an electrician today. That was a waste of money. He said he'd handle it. I stared at the screen. Trevor wasn't here today. He didn't see Gary's truck. So how did he know? Was he monitoring my bank account? Checking my transactions in real time, another text came through, this one from Trevor. Mom, can you wire me $5,000? Emergency with one of our investment properties. I'll pay you back next month. Promised. I'd heard that promise 100 times. 1,000 times. He never paid me back. Neither of them ever did. They just kept taking. And taking. And taking. Until there was nothing left of me but an empty shell, waiting to die so they could cash in. I looked at those insurance policies again. Then at my phone. Then back at the policies. And something inside me, something that had been sleeping for 68 years, woke up. I wasn't going to be a victim anymore. I picked up the business card Gary had given me and dialed the number. A professional female voice answered on the second ring. Warren Law Associates, this is Jennifer speaking. My name is Patricia Hoffman, I said, my voice cold and clear. I need to speak with James Warren about elder financial abuse. And possibly attempted murder. The next morning, I sat in James Warren's office on the 15th floor of a downtown high-rise. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Willamette River, and the morning sun made the water look like liquid gold. James Warren was a tall man, probably in his early 60s, with silver hair and the kind of sharp, intelligent eyes that told you he didn't miss anything. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment used to be, back when I had a mortgage. I'd brought everything. The storage bin Gary had pulled from my attic. The other 6 bins that Gary had helped me retrieve. Every document, every statement, every forged signature, every life insurance policy. James spread them across his massive mahogany desk, methodically reviewing each piece of evidence. He didn't speak for a long time. Just read, his expression growing darker with each page. Finally, he looked up at me. Mrs. Hoffman, in 30 years of practicing elder law, this is one of the most calculated, deliberate cases of financial abuse I've ever seen. And the life insurance policies combined with the electrical sabotage? He shook his head. That's conspiracy to commit murder. Federal charges. What do I do? I asked. My voice didn't shake. I was surprised by that. First, we secure your assets immediately. Today. Right now. He picked up his phone. Jennifer, I need you to get Frank from First National on the line. Emergency meeting. Tell him it's for Patricia Hoffman and it's urgent. He turned back to me. We're going to open new accounts at a completely different bank. Transfer every penny you have. Close the old accounts. Change every password, every PIN, every security question. We make it impossible for them to access anything. What about my house? We'll put it in a trust. Today. With you as the sole trustee and beneficiary. That home equity loan they took out? We're going to challenge it as fraudulent. With your testimony and these forged signatures, we can get it dismissed. He pulled out a legal pad and started writing. Second, we file a police report. Every crime, every forgery, every fraudulent document. We make an official record. Will they arrest Trevor and Jenna? Eventually. But these things take time. We need to build an airtight case. Which brings me to point 3. He looked at me intently. We need a forensic accountant to trace where all this stolen money went. Every dollar. Every transaction. Every property they bought, every business they funded, every vacation they took, all of it. How long will this take? 2, maybe 3 days. We move fast, we move quietly, and we move smart. They can't know what's coming until we're ready to strike. Over the next 72 hours, I became someone I didn't recognize. I met with Frank Morrison at First National Bank. We opened new accounts, checking, savings, investment accounts, and transferred every cent from my old bank. $63,000. That's all I had left from a lifetime of working and sacrificing. $63,000 that they'd stolen over $170,000 from me when you counted the loans, the credit cards, the forged documents that I closed my old accounts. Changed every password. Set up two-factor authentication on everything. James introduced me to a forensic accountant named Electrician. She was a small woman with sharp features and sharper instincts. She took one look at my documents and said, "Give me 48 hours. I'll find every penny." I went home and installed security cameras. 6 of them. Front door, back door, living room, kitchen, hallway, and one pointed at the attic access. All connected to my phone. All recording to the cloud. If anyone came into my house without permission, I'd know. I'd have video evidence. On the 3rd day, Linda called me to James's office. "I found it," she said, spreading printouts across the desk. Every dollar of stolen money, I tracked where it went. She pointed to the first set of documents. Trevor and Bethany used her money, approximately $95,000, to purchase 3 rental properties. A duplex in Southeast Portland, a small apartment building in Gresham, and a single-family home in Beaverton. Combined current value, approximately $640,000. My breath caught. They bought rental properties with my money? Not just bought. They're collecting rent on all 3 properties. Approximately $4,000 per month in total income. That's $48,000 a year. Money they're earning off your stolen funds. Linda moved to the next stack. Jenna used her portion, about $75,000, to expand her real estate business. She hired 5 agents, opened a second office in Lake Oswego, purchased new furniture and equipment, and funded a marketing campaign. Her business value has increased by approximately $200,000 since she made these investments. I felt sick. They'd built empires on my poverty. Created wealth from my stolen identity. Profited from my suffering. "There's more," Linda said quietly. "I found payments to a private investigator. Someone Trevor hired 6 months ago to surveil you. Find out your routines, your patterns, when you were home alone." James leaned forward. Why would he need that information? Linda and I locked eyes. We both knew. Because he was planning the perfect time to kill me, I said flatly. When I'd be alone. When no one would witness it. When it would look like an accident. James was quiet for a long moment. Then he picked up his phone. "Detective Morrison? It's James Warren. I need to report an attempted murder in progress." Detective Morrison, no relation to Frank at the bank, was a woman in her mid-40s with tired eyes and a notepad that looked like it had seen better days. She came to James's office that same afternoon and listened to everything. The forged documents. The insurance policies. The electrical sabotage. The private investigator. The stolen money. All of it. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Mrs. Hoffman, I want to be straight with you. Cases like this are hard to prosecute. Family members have access. They have keys. They have excuses. Defense attorneys will claim you gave them permission, that you're confused, that you're making false accusations." My heart sank. "So you won't help me?" "I didn't say that." She smiled grimly. "I said it's hard. Not impossible. What we need is a confession. Or at least, enough incriminating statements that a jury won't have any doubt." "How do we get that?" Detective Morrison looked at James, then back at me. "We set a trap. Here's what we planned. I would invite Trevor, Bethany, Jenna, and Craig to dinner at my house. A normal family gathering. Nothing suspicious. I'd cook all their favorite foods, set a beautiful table, play the role of the doting mother one last time. but hidden throughout my house would be recording devices. Video cameras I'd already installed, plus audio recorders Detective Morrison would place in strategic locations. Everything would be documented. Every word. Every confession. Every self-incriminating statement. What if they don't confess? I asked. What if they just eat dinner and leave? James smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. That's where strategy comes in. You're going to tell them you've decided to update your will. That you want to make sure they're taken care of. That you've been thinking about your mortality, and that will make them talk? It'll make them comfortable. Confident. Greedy people get sloppy when they think they're winning. He handed me a folder. After dinner, you're going to show them this. Copies of everything. The loans, the credit cards, the insurance policies, the forensic accounting report. You're going to lay it all out and watch them crumble, and if they run? Detective Morrison's smile matched James's. I'll have officers positioned outside. Front door, back door, side yard. Nobody leaves until I say so. We set the dinner for Thursday evening. That gave me 3 days to prepare. 3 days to cook their favorite foods. 3 days to set the stage for their destruction. 3 days to rehearse what I'd say, how I'd act, how I'd play the role of the mother who had no idea what her children had done. On Thursday morning, I sent the text messages to Trevor. Honey, I'm making pot roast tonight. Your favorite. Can you and Bethany come for dinner? 6 o'clock? I have something important to discuss with you both. To Jenna, sweetie, making lasagna tonight, the way you love it with extra cheese. Can you and Craig join us? 6 o'clock? Family meeting, they both responded within minutes. Trevor, sure Mom. We'll be there, Jenna, wouldn't miss it. See you at 6. I wondered if they were excited. If they thought I was finally going to update my will in their favor. If they believed their plan was working perfectly. I spent all day cooking. Pot roast with carrots and potatoes. Lasagna with 4 kinds of cheese. Homemade bread. Caesar salad. Apple pie for dessert. The house smelled like love. Like family. Like all the Sunday dinners we used to have before everything fell apart. At 4 p.m., Detective Morrison arrived with a technician. They placed audio recorders under the dining room table, behind picture frames, inside decorative vases. They checked my security cameras, made sure everything was recording properly. Remember, Detective Morrison said as they were leaving, act natural. Let them do the talking. The more comfortable they feel, the more they'll reveal. At 5:45, I changed into a nice dress. Put on the pearl necklace my husband had given me on our 20th anniversary. Applied lipstick. I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. She looked like a grandmother. Like someone's sweet, elderly mother, but behind her eyes was something cold and calculating and absolutely done with being a victim. At 5:58, I heard a car pull into my driveway. Through the window, I watched Trevor and Bethany step out of their Tesla. Trevor wore expensive slacks and a button-down shirt. Bethany was in a designer dress, carrying a bottle of wine they probably expected me to gush over. 2 minutes later, Jenna and Craig arrived in their BMW. I took a deep breath, fixed my smile, and opened the door. Mom! Jenna squealed, kissing my cheek with the same affection she'd shown me since she was a little girl. The house smells incredible. I made all your favorites, I said, hugging her. Hugging them all. Playing my part. You didn't have to go to all this trouble, Bethany said, handing me the wine bottle. We know how tired you get. I accepted it with a gracious smile, even though I wanted to throw it in her face. It's no trouble at all. I love cooking for my family. We moved to the dining room. The table looked beautiful. Candles. Fresh flowers. My good china that I'd inherited from my mother, everything perfect. Everything planned. We sat down to eat. So Mom, Trevor said, cutting into his pot roast, you said you had something important to discuss? After dinner, I said sweetly. Let's enjoy our meal first. Tell me what's been going on with you all, and they did. Oh, they did. Trevor talked about a new investment opportunity. Some cryptocurrency scheme that was going to make us all rich. Jenna mentioned she was looking at vacation homes in Bend. Craig and I are thinking about buying a ski condo. You know, for weekend getaways. Bethany complained about private school tuition. It's $25,000 a year. Can you believe that? But we want the best for our future children. I listened. Nodded. Smiled. Asked questions. While my security cameras recorded everything. While the audio devices picked up every word. While Detective Morrison sat in an unmarked car down the street, monitoring it all in real time, Craig was quiet through most of dinner. He kept glancing at Jenna, then at me, like he was trying to figure something out. He'd always been perceptive. Kind. I'd always liked him, but I wondered how much he knew. If Jenna had told him everything or kept him in the dark like she'd kept me. After dinner, I brought out the apple pie. Served it with vanilla ice cream. Poured coffee. This is delicious, Mom, Trevor said, taking a large bite. Nobody makes apple pie like you, thank you, honey. I set down my fork. Now, about why I asked you all here. They all looked at me expectantly. Eagerly. Like vultures waiting for the dying animal to finally stop moving. I've been thinking about my mortality, I said softly. I'm 68 years old. I'm not going to live forever. And I want to make sure everything is in order for when I'm gone. Mom, don't talk like that, Jenna said, reaching for my hand. You're going to be around for years and years. Maybe. Maybe not. I stood up slowly. I want to show you all something. Wait here. I walked to the sideboard and picked up the folders I'd prepared. 4 of them. Identical. Each one containing copies of everything, the forged loan documents, the credit card statements, the life insurance policies, the forensic accountant's report showing exactly where my stolen money had gone, the private investigator records, the electrical sabotage evidence, everything. I handed them out one by one. Trevor first. Then Bethany. Then Jenna. Craig last. I thought you should know, I said, my voice calm and cold, that I discovered your secrets. All of them. Trevor opened his folder first. I watched the color drain from his face like water down a sink. His hands started shaking. The papers fluttered. Bethany's hand flew to her mouth. Her eyes went wide with shock, or maybe just fear at being caught. Jenna was shaking her head before she'd even finished reading the first page. Mom, this isn't what? I interrupted, still standing, looking down at all of them. Isn't real? Isn't true? Isn't exactly what you've been doing to me for the past 2 years? Craig was staring at his folder like it contained a bomb. Then he looked at his wife. Really looked at her. Jenna, he said slowly, what is this? What did you do? We didn't, she started, but couldn't finish. You didn't what? I asked. My voice was still eerily calm. Like I was discussing the weather instead of their crimes. You didn't forge my signature on loan documents? You didn't open credit cards in my name? You didn't take out 3 life insurance policies worth $750,000 with yourselves as beneficiaries? The silence in my dining room was so thick you could have cut it with a knife. For people sat frozen at my table, folders open in front of them, their faces showing every shade of guilt and panic. Trevor recovered first. He always was quick on his feet with numbers and lies. Mom, he said, his voice taking on that patronizing tone he used when he thought I was being difficult, I can explain. Can you? I cut him off. Can you explain why you took out a $90,000 loan against my house? The house I paid off 15 years ago? The house your father and I bought with our own money, worked ourselves to exhaustion to keep? He opened his mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. Can you explain, I continued, my voice rising now, why you hired a private investigator to follow me? To document my routines? To find out when I was home alone? Bethany made a small sound, almost like a whimper. Can you explain why my electrical system, in perfect working order for 42 years, suddenly became so dangerous that I had smoke coming from my bedroom outlet? Smoke, Trevor. I could have died in my sleep. That's insane. Bethany finally found her voice. We would never. Never what? I slammed my hand on the table. The dishes jumped. Everyone flinched. Never try to kill me? Then explain the insurance policies. Explain why you discouraged me from calling an electrician. Explain why you tampered with my wiring. I didn't tamper with anything. Trevor shouted, standing up now, his face flushed red with anger instead of shame. You know what, Mom? Fine. Yes. We took out some loans in your name. Because you owe us. I owe you? The words came out as a bitter laugh. Yes. Do you know how hard it was growing up without a father? Do you know what we sacrificed? What we went through? I stared at my son, this man I'd carried in my body, this child I'd worked myself half to death to raise, and I didn't recognize him. What you sacrificed? My voice was dangerously quiet now. I worked double shifts for 15 years. I wore the same 3 nursing uniforms until they had holes in them so you could have new clothes for school. I drove a car that broke down twice a week so you could play sports and go on field trips. I ate instant noodles for breakfast, lunch, and dinner so you could have balanced meals with vegetables and protein. Trevor's jaw clenched. That was your choice. You chose to have kids. That means you chose to provide for them, until when? I asked. Until you're 30? 40? Until I'm dead in a fire and you can collect $750,000? Jenna stood up suddenly, tears streaming down her face. But these weren't the manipulative tears she'd used on me so many times before. These were tears of fear. Of being caught. Mom, please, she sobbed. We're sorry. We got in over our heads with debt, and we thought. You thought it would be easier if I was dead. I finished for her. I understand perfectly. You made that very clear. Craig pushed his chair back violently. The leg scraped across my hardwood floor with a sound like a scream. He was staring at Jenna like he'd never seen her before. Like she was a stranger wearing his wife's face. You told me your mother gave you that money, he said, his voice shaking. You said she wanted to help with the business expansion. You said she insisted. Jenna reached for him. Craig, baby, please. He jerked away from her touch. Did you forge her signature? Did you steal from your own mother? We were going to pay it back. Jenna cried. Once the business took off, once we started making real money, we were going to pay it all back, with interest from the life insurance policies. I asked coldly. After I died in a convenient electrical fire? That's not, Trevor started, then explain it to the police. I walked to my front door and threw it open. Standing on my porch were Detective Morrison and 2 uniformed officers. I believe, I said to Detective Morrison, that you've heard everything you need to hear. What happened next was chaos. Trevor bolted. He actually ran, pushing past me, trying to get out the back door. But there were officers positioned there too. They caught him in my kitchen, wrestled him against the counter, read him his rights while he shouted about how this was all a misunderstanding. Bethany collapsed into her chair, hyperventilating. Her perfect designer dress, her carefully styled hair, her polished exterior, all of it crumbled as she gasped for air and fumbled for her phone. I want my lawyer, she kept saying. I want my lawyer right now. Jenna clutched at Craig, begging him not to leave her. Please, Craig, please. I love you. We can fix this. We can make this right. But Craig pulled away from her like she was toxic. Like her touch would contaminate him. I didn't know, he said to me, his eyes filled with tears. Patricia, I swear to God, I had no idea. Did I believe you? I said quietly. And I did. Craig had always been genuine. Always kind. He'd been as deceived as I had been. Doubt what's going to happen to them? He asked. That depends on the prosecutor, Detective Morrison said as her officers handcuffed my children. But elder financial abuse, identity theft, fraud, conspiracy to commit murder, they're looking at significant federal prison time. Trevor, being led past me in handcuffs, stopped and looked me in the eyes. You're really going to do this? You're going to destroy your own children? I looked at this man who'd once been my baby boy. The child I'd sung lullabies to. The teenager I'd stayed up late helping with homework. The young man I'd been so proud to see graduate college. No, Trevor, I said softly. You destroyed yourselves. I'm just making sure you face the consequences. As they were taken out to the police cars, Trevor still shouting, Bethany crying, Jenna begging Craig to help her, I stood in my doorway and watched. Neighbors were coming out of their houses, drawn by the flashing lights and the commotion. Mrs. Chin from next door. The Rodriguez family across the street. Old Mr. Patterson from the corner house. They'd all known me for years. Decades. They'd watched my children grow up. They'd brought me casseroles when my husband died. They'd been my community. Now they were witnessing my children being arrested for trying to kill me. After the police cars drove away, Craig lingered on my porch. I'll file for divorce tomorrow, he said, his voice hollow. I can't be married to someone who would do this. I'm sorry you got caught up in this, Craig. You're a good man. He nodded slowly, tears running down his face. For what it's worth, Patricia, you were always a wonderful mother. Better than they deserved. After everyone left, I stood alone in my house. The dining table was still set with the remains of our last family dinner. The pot roast had gone cold. The apple pie sat uneaten, ice cream melted into puddles on the plates. I cleaned it all up. Methodically. Scraped plates. Wrapped leftovers. Loaded the dishwasher. Wiped down counters. Normal tasks for the most abnormal night of my life. When everything was clean, I sat on my couch in the quiet house and let myself cry. Not for my children, they'd made their choices. But for the mother I'd been. For the woman who'd believed that sacrifice equaled love. For all the years I'd spent giving pieces of myself away until there was almost nothing left. The next few months were brutal. The local news picked up the story within days. Portland woman's children arrested in murder plot, read the headline in the Oregonian. My face was on the evening news. Neighbors were interviewed. Former co-workers from the hospital called to express their shock. My phone rang constantly. Reporters wanting interviews. Old friends I hadn't heard from in years suddenly concerned about my well-being. Strangers sending messages of support or, occasionally, judgment. How could you turn on your own children? Family should forgive family. They made mistakes, but they're still your babies. I stopped reading the messages after a while. James Warren filed motions to have the fraudulent loans dismissed. The home equity line of credit was challenged in court. The credit card companies were notified that my identity had been stolen. Linda Chin, the forensic accountant, compiled a comprehensive report documenting every stolen dollar, every forged signature, every fraudulent transaction. The evidence was overwhelming. But Trevor and Jenna hired expensive defense attorneys. They claimed I'd given them permission. That I was confused. That my memory wasn't reliable at my age. That this was all a terrible misunderstanding between a forgetful mother and children who were just trying to help manage her affairs. Their lawyers painted me as a lonely old woman who'd made up elaborate conspiracy theories because she couldn't accept that her children had grown up and moved on with their lives. It hurt. Every accusation. Every lie. Every attempt to make me look incompetent, but then the forensic evidence came in. The electrical wiring in my house had been deliberately damaged. An independent inspector confirmed what Gary Henderson had found. Someone with knowledge of electrical systems had tampered with multiple circuits in a way designed to cause sparking, overheating, and potentially fire. Trevor's internet search history was recovered from his laptop. How to cause electrical fire? How long does it take to investigate accidental death? Life insurance payout timeline. Can beneficiaries be prosecuted if death is suspicious? Each search was time-stamped. Each one another nail in his coffin. Jenna's emails told their own damning story. Messages to Bethany about dividing my assets. Discussions about selling my house quickly after my death. Plans for what they'd do with the insurance money. In one email, dated just 6 weeks before Gary Henderson discovered everything, Jenna had written to Bethany. We just need to be patient. Once she's gone, we'll finally be free of the burden. Trevor says it should look completely natural. No one will question an old woman dying in a house fire. When the prosecutor read that email aloud in the preliminary hearing, I felt physically sick. Burdened, that's what I'd become to them. Not their mother. Not a human being who'd given them life and sacrificed everything to raise them. A burden they wanted eliminated. The trial began 9 months after their arrest. I sat in the courtroom every single day. Front row. Where they couldn't avoid seeing me. Trevor's defense tried to argue that he'd never actually intended to hurt me. That the insurance policies were prudent financial planning. That his internet searches were research for a novel he was thinking about writing. The prosecutor destroyed that argument in minutes. Mr. Hoffman, she said, if you were writing a novel, why did you also hire a private investigator to surveil your mother? Why did you document her daily routines, her times alone, her habits? Trevor had no good answer. Jenna's defense claimed she'd been manipulated by her older brother. That she'd just been following Trevor's lead. That she was a victim too, but then the prosecutor presented Jenna's own handwritten notes. Plans she'd made. Calculations about how much money they'd each get. Real estate listings she'd saved for properties she wanted to buy after. The jury looked at her with disgust. Bethany's lawyer tried to paint her as an innocent wife who'd been kept in the dark by her husband. But the emails proved otherwise. She'd known everything. Participated in everything. Encouraged everything. The trial lasted 3 weeks. 21 days of testimony, evidence, expert witnesses, and my children trying to explain away the inexplicable. The jury deliberated for 3 days. When they returned, the courtroom was packed. Media. Neighbors. Strangers who'd followed the case. Craig, sitting in the back, his divorce already finalized. On the charge of elder financial abuse, how do you find? Guilty. On the charge of identity theft? Guilty. On the charge of fraud? Guilty. On the charge of conspiracy to commit murder. The foreman looked directly at Trevor and Jenna. Guilty. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel triumph. I just felt profoundly, overwhelmingly sad. The sentencing came 2 weeks later. Trevor, 15 years in federal prison. Jenna, 12 years in federal prison. Bethany, 8 years for conspiracy and fraud. As the judge read the sentences, I watched my children's faces. Trevor looked angry, defiant, like he still believed he'd done nothing truly wrong. Jenna sobbed, finally understanding the consequences of her actions. Bethany simply looked empty. Before they were taken away, Trevor turned to look at me one last time. He didn't say anything. Just looked at me with something that might have been regret. Or might have been resentment that I'd survived long enough to stop them. I'll never know. After the trial, I sold my house. I couldn't live there anymore. Couldn't walk past the attic without remembering what had been hidden there. Couldn't cook in the kitchen where my children had plotted my death over Sunday dinners. I bought a small condo across town. 10th floor. Big windows. A view of Mount Hood on clear days. I started over. The money they'd stolen, most of it was recovered through asset forfeiture. Trevor's rental properties were sold at auction. Jenna's business was liquidated. I got back about 60% of what they'd taken. It wasn't about the money anymore, though. It was about justice. About refusing to be a victim. About reclaiming my life. Craig stayed in touch. He sends me cards on holidays, checks in every few weeks to make sure I'm okay. He's a good man who made the mistake of falling in love with the wrong woman. We have coffee sometimes. Talk about ordinary things. Movies. Books. The weather. It's nice to have a connection to that part of my life without the toxicity. I receive letters from Trevor and Jenna occasionally. From prison. They're full of apologies, explanations about debt and pressure and bad decisions. Trevor writes that he's found religion. That he's taking classes, working in the prison library, trying to become a better person. Jenna claims she's in therapy, working through her issues, understanding why she did what she did. I read their letters once. Then I file them away in a box in my closet. I don't write back. Some betrayals cut too deep to forgive. Some wounds don't heal just because time passes. Maybe I'm cruel for that. Maybe a better person would offer forgiveness, mercy, another chance. But I've spent 68 years being better. Being selfless. Being the one who always gives and never takes. I'm done with that version of myself, but this story doesn't end in bitterness. That's not who I want to be either. With the recovered money, I created the Patricia Hoffman Foundation for Elder Protection. We provide legal aid to elderly people experiencing financial abuse. We offer counseling. We educate families about the warning signs. We help people who can't afford attorneys like James Warren. In 2 years, we've helped over 300 people. 300 families who might have ended up like mine if someone hadn't intervened. I also met real friends. Eleanor, my neighbor in the condo building, became like a sister to me. She'd been through her own family betrayal years ago. We understood each other in ways that people who haven't experienced this kind of pain simply can't. We travel together now. Last year, we went to Italy. Walked the streets of Rome, ate pasta in Florence, watched the sunset over Venice. I'd always wanted to see Italy but kept putting it off because Trevor needed help with rent or Jenna needed money for her business. This year, we're planning Japan. Cherry blossoms and ancient temples and food I can't even pronounce. I'm living the life I postponed for decades. I volunteer at Portland General, the hospital where I used to work. I sit with patients who don't have family visitors. I hold their hands. Listen to their stories. Make them feel less alone, because I know what it's like to be surrounded by people who should love you but don't. To feel invisible even when you're in the same room as your own children. I make sure those patients know they matter. That someone sees them. That they're more than forgotten bodies in hospital beds, and sometimes, when I'm sitting on my condo balcony watching the sunset paint mounted pink and gold, I think about Gary Henderson. The electrician who went into my attic to check the wiring and found evidence that saved my life. He could have just fixed the electrical problem and left. He could have looked the other way, decided it wasn't his business, let me figure it out on my own. But he didn't. He chose to get involved. To document everything. To give me his attorney's number. To refuse payment for a service call that gave me back my life. After the trial, I sent him a thank you note with a check for $10,000. A fraction of what I owed him, really. He sent it back with a simple message written on my note. Mrs. Hoffman, you don't owe me anything. I just did what was right. I hope you're finding peace. I framed that note. It hangs in my living room where I can see it every day. A reminder that there are good people in this world. People who do the right thing not because they'll profit from it, but because it's right. I am finding peace. Not the peace I imagined when my children were young and I dreamed of being a beloved grandmother surrounded by family. But a different kind of peace. Harder one. More precious because I fought for it, The peace that comes from knowing you stood up for yourself. That you refused to be erased. That you chose dignity over denial, justice over false harmony, truth over comfortable lies. My name is Patricia Hoffman. I'm 70 years old now. My children are in federal prison for conspiracy to commit my murder. And despite everything, despite the betrayal and the pain and the loss, I've learned something valuable. Family isn't defined by blood or obligation. It's defined by respect, by genuine love, by people who value your life instead of counting down the days until your death. The electrician who discovered what my children were hiding in my attic gave me more than evidence. He gave me back my life. My agency. My right to exist is something more than a source of money for ungrateful adults. To anyone watching this who might see themselves in my story, who might be giving and giving and giving to children or family members who only take, I want you to hear this. You don't owe anyone your dignity, you don't owe anyone your safety. You don't owe anyone the right to abuse you just because you share DNA. Love your children, yes. Support them when they truly need help, absolutely. But never let them steal your life while you're still living it. Never let them treat you like an ATM with feelings. Never let them make you feel guilty for having boundaries, for protecting yourself, for saying no. And if someone, an electrician, a neighbor, a friend, a stranger, tries to help you see what's really happening, don't dismiss them. Don't defend the people who are hurting you. Don't choose denial over truth because the truth is too painful. Listen. Investigate. Protect yourself, because you matter. Your life has value beyond what you can provide for others. You deserve to live your remaining years in peace and safety and joy. Not in fear. Not in debt. Not waiting to die so other people can profit from your death. Elder abuse is more common than anyone wants to believe. It happens in every community, every economic class, every family structure, but speaking up is the first step toward freedom. Protecting yourself isn't selfish. It's survival. And you, yes, you watching this right now, you are worthy of protection. You are valuable. You deserve better than people who see you as nothing more than an inheritance waiting to happen. If my story resonated with you, if it made you think about your own family relationships, if it gave you the courage to examine situations you've been avoiding, please share this video. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Share it with someone who might be going through what I went through. Hit that like button so I know this message reached you. Drop a comment telling me your thoughts. Should children be forgiven for this kind of betrayal? Is blood really thicker than water? I want to hear your perspective, and if you're not already subscribed to Voice of Auntie Katie, click that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications. Because I bring you stories like this every week, stories of betrayal and survival, of pain and triumph, of people who refuse to stay victims. Stories that might just save someone's life. Before I go, I want to leave you with one final thought. If an electrician or a plumber, or a repairman, or anyone ever needs to go into your attic, your basement, your private spaces, let them. Don't refuse because someone told you not to. Don't wait for family members who promise to help but never show up, because you never know what truth might be hiding in the darkness, waiting to save your life. My name is Patricia Hoffman. I'm 70 years old. I survived my children's attempt to murder me. I rebuilt my life from the ruins they tried to create. And if I can do it, so can you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of this community where we speak truth, support each other, and refuse to let betrayal have the final word. I'll see you in the next story. Until then, protect yourself, value yourself, and remember your life belongs to you. Nobody else. Just you. God bless you all.